Okay, good to go.
Okay, welcome to our session on using Padlet to support in primary art. I'll introduce myself and then Mandy's going to introduce herself. So I'm Jean Edwards and I used to be an art teacher and art coordinator in schools for about 20 years. And now I work at the University of Northampton supporting students who are teaching assistants who work in schools and come to university 1 day a week. And I've got a really strong interest still in art education, and I'm a part-time emerging trying to do my own art, so I'm really interested in practical art, but I've also through my job become really interested in technology and how technology can support art, and that's where Padlet came in for me.
And I'm Mandy Barrett. I am a specialist art teacher working in Gomersall Primary School. I've been a primary school teacher for 20 years, 10 of those class-based, where I was the art subject lead, and the last 10 years I've been specifically specialising in just teaching art throughout the whole school.
Oh, such a great job. So we're here to talk about Padlets and how Padlet could support learning and teaching and teachers and children. So I'm going to share my screen just while we have an opening chat about Padlet and what it's like. And then Mandy's going to talk specifically about Padlet with her pupils. And then I'm going to talk about Padlet and teachers. So let me do that. So here we go. So you should be able to see a screen now that's got some posts about Padlet. Can you see those, Mandy?
Yeah, I can see them, Jean.
That's okay. So where did you find Padlet? What was your early experience of it, Mandy?
Oh, I think I'm quite new to Padlet, actually. It's come about attending various CPD sessions as an art subject leader, and they've just been a brilliant place to gather sources of inspiration, I suppose, and places where people can put up images, any PowerPoints that are being shared, or any relevant websites. It's just been a really brilliant place as a subject leader to be able to dip in and out of things that people share.
Yeah, and I think it is really shareable, and we were talking earlier about how, because it's an educational tool, there is absolutely no advertising in it. So the only things that are going to appear on your Padlet are the things you choose to put there, or who, you know, if you shared it with other people, whatever they've put there, which makes it really school friendly.
It makes it really accessible, doesn't it? You know, you can use it with young children and they're only going to see what you've put there.
Yeah, and actually, although I've made a Padlet here that I'm going to use later, but you can have a Padlet that's got nothing but visual images on it. It doesn't need to rely on the written word at all. You know, I've put a post here to kind of list the sorts of things you can add to a Padlet. So you can keep it really minimal, or you can have lots of different sorts of things depending on what your purpose is. So yeah, it's quite interesting. So all of these different sorts of things like links, images that you've taken, video that you've taken, documents you've made, you as adults or children can record your own voices. So if you don't want the children to have to rely on the written word and their own writing skills, you can get them to record what their views or thoughts are, which I think is really nice. So yeah, there's quite a lot. And Mandy, you were saying earlier about how you're using the free account.
Yeah, we've not signed up for any specific paid Padlet. We just use the free version, so that you are restricted to how many Padlets you can have with that. But I found it really accessible to use, and then I screenshot any things I'd like to keep and then just delete that Padlet and then create a new one. So that's worked so far within our setting.
Yeah, so I'm lucky enough to work at a really big institution, a university, and so we have it as one of the tools that they pay for, so that every member of staff and every student can have an account that they use. And we were talking earlier about how Padlet are quite approachable as a company. They're on Twitter, I think they're on Instagram, they're on Facebook. They're really responsive to emails. They're really interested in seeing what their users do and responding to that. So I think, you know, there is scope, especially for small schools or groups of people within schools, to approach them and say, oh, you know, we'd really like to try this out. Can you help us? So, you know, you might look at the costs and be put off, but certainly the free account's a great starting point. So, and you can, the other thing you can do is with a Padlet, you can download it as a PDF and capture it that way if you want to then take things off and start again. So that's quite a good way of capturing what was on a Padlet before you change it. And the other thing I put up here is the variations of the different security settings you could have. So if you wanted to share it with parents, if you wanted to share it, you know, between classes or have on a school website, there's all sorts of levels of access you can do in terms of who can post on it, who can see it, who can react to it. All those sorts of things can be managed by the person whose Padlet it is.
And that makes it even more accessible for schools, because to be able to share a Padlet with parents and knowing you can change the settings so they can't comment on it, or where they comment but you can approve it first before it goes live, they're huge benefits when you're working with the school, just to keep with the safeguarding in mind and keeping things safe.
Yeah, so I guess before I hand over to Mandy, I'm just going to say that this is the Padlet, and we should have said, what is Padlet? So this is a Padlet. It's like a screen where you can add lots of different things, and you can see here that I have added lots of posts. And if you want to add something to a Padlet, you click this plus, and then it gives you lots of options. These are all the options of the different things you can add. So it's very versatile. And then you can also, I'm not going to do it right now because I've ordered these, but you can pick these up and move them around into a different order. And you can also show them to an audience as a slideshow. So you could, instead of looking at the whole Padlet, you could scroll through each post. So often students will make a Padlet as an overview of information, but then when they share it, we'll look at each one in order. So we'll have a closer look at the kind of structures and options a bit later on, but I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. If I can work out how to do that. Yeah, I think have I stopped?
Yeah, that's stopped now. So if I put mine...
So, yeah, you can put yours on next, Mandy.
Okay, is that on the screen?
It is, yeah. Brilliant.
Okay, so in terms of how we use this in school, I'd say I use it in a really, really simple way. I'm not overly tech-minded, but I find Padlet incredibly easy to use. And I suppose it's one of those apps, one of those programs. You can use it on your iPads. I use it on my mobile phone. You can use it on, project it onto your big screen within your classroom. And it's really self-explanatory, and I found it really easy to use. So when setting up a Padlet, you can get a QR code. So when I did that for the first time, the one I'm showing you at the moment is one that I've been using with our Year 6 children. So I set up the QR code, which I had visible on my iPad within the classroom, and the children came up to that with their iPads and just used their camera setting to screenshot the QR code, which then took them straight into Padlet. That was really easy, and the children found that incredibly accessible to use for the first time. I also sent the email link for that Padlet onto my standalone computer in the classroom, which projected that Padlet onto the big screen within the classroom. So it sounds really complicated if you've never done it before, but it is incredibly easy to do. So at that time, I had Padlet projected onto the screen. It was on my iPad for me to use, and it was on all the children's iPad for them to use. So that means through having access to that, the children were able to take photographs of their artwork. So we started using this as a way of self-assessment, as a way of peer assessment, as a way of projecting artwork onto the big screen to be able to chat about it, for the children to ask questions, for the children to be able to comment on each other's work. And the first time we did this, that awe and wonder, just the gasps of children seeing their artwork being projected onto the big screen was absolutely wonderful. And I suppose different to doing it screenshot wise, because there's, we've shared things on the visualizer, but I think because they felt in control of it, it meant a whole load more to them. So the children were screenshotting, they were putting things up on the screen, and they started commenting, and they pretty much figured out how to use that independently. We had to stop after about 15 minutes and have a discussion about the difference between chatting on social media and the difference between talking and peer assessment within school, because we had a lot of children commenting on work going, awesome dude, amazing, words that I'd learned for the first time, like slay, it was sick, man. So we appreciated those as comments and how you might chat to people via social media, but then we brought it back within school, and how would we talk to people within a lesson? How can we tell people that their artwork is brilliant, but using language that you would use in a classroom? And then, so that's bringing in that peer assessment and that self-assessment and bringing it back onto a school-based level. So that was an interesting conversation, and brought in a lot of literacy skills as well, about how you might comment in sketchbooks, how you might verbally comment to people. So then they started to really think about what they were writing, giving compliments, giving constructive feedback, and giving those reasons. So some of the things that the children were writing to each other were brilliant. It gave children the opportunity to ask for advice. It gave children the opportunity to talk about what they liked. And I suppose from my point of view, it gave me another kind of avenue as the teacher to see if they were learning what I wanted them to learn. I could pick out the vocabulary that they were using, and if they weren't using the vocabulary that I needed them to use, that then gave me the opportunity to revisit and to reteach that. So if we were learning about clay, for example, were they using words like slip? Were they using words like texture? Were they using the vocabulary that I wanted them to use? We were learning about the ancient Mayans, and I wanted them to learn about the different types of masks that were used within that culture, within that time frame. Were they using that within the way they were commenting on the work? And they were a lot of the time. So that is just another form of assessment from my point of view. But it was just a fantastic way, again, of the children sharing, of them to be able to gather, just to raise confidence levels. And it really did work with these Year 6 children. We had some fantastic comments, like the children putting up images of their little son, sugar skulls, when we moved on from learning about the ancient Mayans and went on to learning about the Day of the Dead festival. I wanted the children to use blanket stitch. I wanted the children to use a template to cut out accurately. I wanted them to be able to use applique and embroidery skills. And that was all really evident in the photographs that they were posting up there. And again, in the comments that the children were using with each other. So just to kind of sum up, it was a brilliant way for the children to self-assess. It was a brilliant way to raise confidence levels, a fantastic way for peer assessment, for gathering advice. And then from my point of view, when I was looking at my overviews for what I wanted the children to learn in those specific lessons or period of lessons, I could then almost looking at them side by side and thinking, yeah, those children are using the right language. They've definitely learned what I wanted them to learn. So it was an extra tool within my assessment kit, really, so I could monitor what the children had learned. So that kind of sums it up in a nutshell, Jean, about how we use it with our children in school.
And it's really, I don't know, I feel like it's really sensitive to art as a subject, in that you can capture the visual either in photographs or video, and then you can capture what the artists themselves are saying about their work and to each other. So it's not like I can remember working in sketchbooks with children and frantically scribbling down notes on post-its and, you know, on separate bits of paper and on my planning, but that kind of captures it really cohesively in a way that seems right for art itself.
Yeah, definitely. And it gave children the opportunity then to revisit. If they saw something on Padlet that somebody else had done and thought, oh, crikey, I've not thought of doing that, then it gave those children a chance to go back into their work and rework into it without me intervening or saying anything. They were almost bouncing off each other and using the images that they'd seen on the screen or within their own little iPads of, oh, crikey, Bill at the other end of the room has done this. And they wouldn't necessarily have seen that with the seating plan or wherever they've been sitting. So it's been fantastic on all different levels.
Yeah, and I guess as art teacher and art coordinator, being able to capture that at the end in quite a straightforward way. And then do you download them as PDFs and hold on to them?
No, I haven't explored that. I've just been screenshotting kind of
Oh
specific
yeah.
parts,
Oh
but
yeah, that's a good idea.
yeah,
But yeah,
definitely the PDF. There's a
I
top tip
think it's
there.
in the sharing bit. Oh, that's good. I love seeing it in action like that. It's really good. So did everyone kind of adopt? Oh, because you get to teach most classes for art, so you can
Yeah, I
apply
do.
assistance.
I'm really lucky there, but I suppose if you, I mean, I teach all the children. If you as art leader didn't have contact with all of the children within your school, for the teachers to be able to use Padlet and then
Yeah,
send you
yeah,
screenshots or send you the PDFs, then it's an easy way for
mm,
you to monitor what's going on within your subject across school.
definitely. Yeah, that's another strand to it, isn't it? Oh, that's great. I'm just going to share my screen again then. Let's have a go at that. Okay, so I should be back to my Padlet. And I'm really proud of this one because I've got a background which is a piece of art. I really liked your background, Andy. Was that a piece of art you'd chosen?
Yes, yeah, from the children.
Nice. So when Diane talked about this to me, I tried to put together on this Padlet, because I thought I should go with the theme, some different thoughts I'd had about using Padlet and how it might support teachers and schools. So I've got a few examples of ways I've used it to collect resources, because I think one thing that happens when we're out in the world and on social media and talking to each other is we come across ideas and links and resources and images, and Padlet's a great way of collecting them all together so you don't lose track of them and then organising them in a usable way. So, and I often share these in the Primary Art Ask NSEAD group on When It's My Day. So for example, this is one that I've made which is all about different types of collage, because I've sort of felt from looking at the questions I've been asked that when you see that word collage you think, oh gosh, collage, is that sticking things? But actually, when you look at it, there's loads of different types of collage. So on this Padlet, I've tried to come up with all the different types, and they're purple, and then find artists who work like that, and sort of use this as a way of maybe helping teachers make some different choices about collage rather than, you know, kind of sticking with the same things that they normally do. So that's kind of one way of doing it, just kind of collecting together examples and possibilities to then make choices from in your teaching. And then the other thing I've done is taken a particular type of art like printmaking, which I'm really interested in, and I've put together subject knowledge. So for non-specialist teachers who might be a bit overwhelmed by all the different types of printmaking there are, this Padlet kind of goes through the definitions and then different types with examples, and then sort of translate those into primary school activity. And then I have another Padlet here, which is applying all of that printmaking to the typical experiences children might have in primary schools with how-tos and examples. So again, it's just a way of kind of capturing all those possibilities which you can then really easily and quickly use to support your working knowledge as an art teacher. You know, and I'm really conscious from my students that there's not much time available to be trained as an art specialist within the kind of overall all the subjects, many of which have a different status to art. The other possibility is you can present information in little groups or shelves. So when you make a shelf Padlet, you can have a theme at the top of each shelf, like a bookshelf, and then you can put things into the shelves. So it's really easy for people to follow up different aspects of the same thing. This is one I use with my students when we work with augmented and virtual reality, so that they can explore different tools to use in school. And then the other thing I was just thinking about recently is that Padlet itself has these other ways of showing information. So it allows you to show information as a timeline. So I took an artist, Marianne North, who's a Victorian botanical painter, and I made a timeline of her travels and the art she made, which I thought was an interesting way of sort of capturing one artist's life in art. And I suppose one of the reasons I did that was firstly because she's a woman. She worked a long time ago in a time when it wasn't common to be an artist and travel the world. But also it took me away from choosing one image to represent the artist and think about how a person might change and develop and have this one interest that they pursued. So that's one possibility for if you want to share art with children. And then the other one is that Padlet offers a map. So you can present the information on a map. So this is the same information about Marianne North, just they call it reformatting. So you just choose the map instead. And so we can see the posts in the locations where the art was made. If you want to perhaps give a sense of where an artist worked, or where lots of different artists work in the world and how they maybe saw things differently and maybe were influenced by their geography. So I think, there's lots of possibilities for capturing information to support you as a teacher in Padlet. And then I think the other thing, which is kind of parallel to what Mandy shared, is that you can use Padlet to make virtual galleries. And Mandy's shown you one with images, and I've made this one because recently I discovered that if you add GIFs to Padlet, I wonder if it'll show you. If you add GIFs to Padlet, because GIFs play continuously, that's what will happen on the Padlet. So if you get your children to work in this way using digital art, you can have a moving, ever-moving gallery of children's art, which just sort of continually allows to see what they've made. This is an example of, I did a monthly challenge about making augmented reality art, and this was my the way I captured it. But so that's quite interesting. The other thing that you can do, particularly if you want to maybe get children to work independently in different ways, is you can use Padlet to make what we call this a virtual environment. It's actually one Padlet with lots of Padlets on it. We made it during COVID times, where instead of having a real life festival of sharing of what we've been doing in a project, somebody came up with the idea of having a virtual festival, which we call a festival. Very proud of that. And you can see that there were tents for each different aspect of the things that we'd made, and the user just clicks into the different tents. We got an art tent. So they could click into the art tent and then explore the art that we'd made and explore the different tools we recommended, and all sorts of different activities could be done. So it's a very quick way of making your own almost mini website. I feel like it could be a good way of making digital portfolios and sketchbooks as well. And then in terms of a few other things, I'm conscious that I need to stop now. I think there are ways of children creating their own art within Padlet, which is a relatively recent innovation in that they've added the opportunity to make drawings. So there's a simple drawing screen here. It's just got colours and a pen, and you can change the background and you can erase things, and then you can save your drawing. So I had a quick go here at that. So it's, it can be a quick, fun drawing tool. But they've also, I'm pretty sure this only appeared last week, added something called I Can't Draw. And in this, it's kind of like, I think, an early AI drawing tool where you can add your words. So I added the words lino cut, countryside, tree, sky, blue and green, and it suggested to me these images. So I was sort of using my words to create visual images, which I think is quite an interesting thing maybe to experiment with, since it's out there in the world. And then finally, the other possibility I thought, and I was inspired by Mandy's use here, was I think the idea that you could maybe use a Padlet to capture the children's ideas and thoughts and questions about the art they talk about. So I added a piece of art and made it big, added some prompt questions, which I think I could, working with younger children, I would record those so they could listen to the questions, and then they can comment in words, or they could add their audio responses around the picture. So that's, I'm conscious, a really quick sweep through the possibilities. So please do feel free to add questions under the Facebook post if you want any answers. I'm going to stop there because I feel like I've gone on and on.
It makes me want to explore even more, Jean. It's so much on there, isn't there?
Yeah, so I think I've stopped sharing now, but I've sent the link to Diane so that Diane can share that with anyone who wants to look at it, just because I think, you know, the more you see other people's ways of using it, the more you think, oh, I can apply that to what I'm doing in this way, which is what you really want to take away from this. How can you as a user get something out of it?
And I've just seen a question in the chat. Yeah, I kind of devoted a full lesson to teaching the children how to use it, how to use that correct language, and getting them to take photographs of artwork they'd already created within the sketchbooks or within like final pieces around the room. But then after that initial lesson, they now know how to get the iPads out, access that Padlet and add to it and add comments to it. So it was well worth that kind of devotion for that one lesson.
Yeah, definitely. It's a really good routine to use and then apply over and over, isn't it? Great. Oh, thanks very much for sharing that, Mandy. I really enjoyed seeing it.
It's all right. Thank you for inviting me along.
So I think we're going to wrap up now, but I really do recommend that you go to padlet.com and have a play if you're at all interested, because it's a really good educational tool.